And here we go. Best of 5, TvZ. In the bottom right for Team Liquid, he is Clem. In the top right of Oceanborn. That's top left. Hold up, don't worry about it. It is Team Liquid's Elazer. Don't make fun of me. I'm trying. They do have Elazer going for the newish, but getting increasingly not new 15 hatch opener. Faster queens to help out against the Reapers. Don't have to make the lings, whatever. I thought it was a phase, and I thought it even might be a response to the growing 2-racks meta. But it is here to stay, because particularly for the Europeans, the 2-racks meta kind of come and gone. It barely came in the first place. It's like a drifter. Just kind of was like, oh, is he there? I don't know. Like, Clem was practicing with it. He was playing around with a 2-racks opener for like a month. And then decided that that was done with. And he brings it in maybe once in a best of 5, so I do think we'll see it here today, but he doesn't really do it a whole lot. He's back to his old standard, 3cc basically. Supercharged bio play. So I guess the Zerg player is still preferring the easiness of this opener. And Clem loving his typical play that gets him right where he wants to be, which is a perfectly positioned 3cc 5 racks bio player. Generally into 4th TC afterward. He's not so much an 8 racks guy either. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. When it comes to Clem, for the most part, I do still absolutely love that he does use the open cups to practice some of these alternative builds and styles, because I think that's how you become a well-rounded, overall great player. But he refused to be swayed by the winds of change, perhaps knowing that they are temporary. He will acknowledge it, adopt it temporarily, fold it into his playstyle as best of planning. But he won't just say this is the way to go because Bjorn does it all the time, and I love Bjorn, which I'm pretty sure he does. He likes what he does, and it is effective. He does still typically win with it. And the only player that doesn't win against it is Cyril, and then Raynor, kind of like, whether Raynor's putting in dozens of hours into prepping for like a Gamer's 8. Because if Raynor does that, then Raynor's almost unbeatable. If Raynor doesn't, then Clem does beat Raynor. It's kind of the way it's gone in the last year. So yeah, Clem's probably going to win this one if he does get into his comfort zone. But Elazer, when he does get the surprise victories that I was talking about coming into the series, when he does get the W's, whether it's the maps or the actual series, it's a lot because of his kind of surprise aggression. The momentum that is gained from a weirdly aggressive Zerg player, I guess, can actually be game-winning. And I'm talking about those times in which the first 16 Marines get surrounded, you're a little late in the pickup, you run back home, and then what's that? Elazer actually didn't build drones, and is just pumping lings across the map to try and kill you. Oh, shit. And then you actually die. Theoretically, if they were late to the injects, if they were a little more hesitant, if they weren't a Zerg player who wanted to be aggressive, then this is not a problem. You just kind of go, oh, well, that drop wasn't that great, and then you move on to the next drop. Because back at home, you're totally fine. But that type of piercing strike that has like one time to shine almost, and then it's just, if it doesn't work, then the Zerg player's way too poor to really make a macro game work. That's Elazer's wins some of the times. I would say a lot of the times, but then I think what also can happen is that he actually is playing his S tier game for whatever reason. Not even necessarily because he's been putting so many hours of practice. He just, is whatever reason, is playing his S tier game. And he actually wins macro games. That also has happened with Elazer. Absolutely. And speaking of lings on the side of the map, we had some pretty typical openers, thanks to the new Zerg meta. Clem also did go in his 3cc. I didn't really need to say that. It was 2-1-1 after, so, just 2 Hellions get a little bit of map control. And hey, 2 Creep Tumors are already pretty great for that. But But yeah, it was what we predicted. So now we get into the game that Clem usually prefers to play. So Elazer hasn't been able to offset his opponent too much, but he is playing roaches, which I do think just as a style is a little more disturbing for Clem to play against. Not that he sees roaches and then his heart sinks and he realizes he's done messed up. No, it's not that extreme, but I do think that roaches being the cement block that they are, there's not a lot of finesse around them, which can be a double-edged sword, does kind of stop Clem's fancy footwork, I guess. The games where he just micros against Lings trying to chase him, micros against the Banelings target firing, and then it just is, beautiful. But only for the Terran perspective, the Zerg freaking hates it. Roaches are a little more like you can't do anything. I am a cement block in front of you, and you can't do anything if there is an appropriate number. And that is the trick to it, of course, but one that Elazer is hoping to actually succeed with, as the roaches are on the way. He also could go for a 1-1 roach attack, which also has the benefit of going for the flip the script approach. Clem wants to dominate the mid game with his control and his macro and his greatness, blah, 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 blah. Sure, whatever, kid. But then roaches are a punch to the face. And this is why Clem has had, in the past, difficulties against Dark. Not only does Dark have the X factor of being Dark, I suppose, but then also his playstyle heavily revolves around roaches. And I think that just kind of always offsets Clem's expectations for TvZ. Did not cancel that factory, by the way, so a loss of minerals right there. Elazer making sure to stay active with some Ling run-bys. Just little pokes and prods. Not enough to really destroy Clem's momentum or really distract him, but enough to get a killed factory. That's actually pretty good. And then the roaches get the time to come out, get the time to shine, and again, it's just a numbers thing. If you have the numbers of roaches you need, there's not a lot of micro that Marine Medevac can do against it. If they're in position, not anything they can do against it. And with only 2 Medevacs paired together to track, Elazer is not having so much difficulty doing so. Hive is on the way now, as he did grab the infestation pits. He is playing like he played versus Gumiho. So this is the way that Elazer is playing today, and perhaps has been for a little while. But it is going to be the Roach defense to initiate the game into the Hive technology, and then more and more emphasis on Ling Baneling, and perhaps even Ultra. So, not changing that, though he is facing a different type of Terran. But when you are doing this style of play every single game in a best of 5, the Terran will should always worry about the 1-1 Roach all-in, especially by a guy like Elazer. So please look at that in your back pocket if you want to go for it. Elazer being awfully aggressive, even running into his own corrosive biles, realizing he had an opportunity to push that all the way back and continue his creep spread. Upgrades finally finished for the Zerg player. Clem already working his way to 2-2. Elazer lickety-split to that, so he is on point for that. Hive is almost done as well, and he has not really had to deflect too many drops. But he's been absolutely prepared to do so. Elazer hasn't really had the full might of Clem's army descend upon him. This has very much been just the little toe taps forward with a couple of drops here and there. The quad drop could obviously get a little more devastating, but it's not even fully quad drop. Clem is keeping all his tanks at home. He went into a very fast 4th CC. He's going into the super macro mode. I'd be surprised if he goes straight into turtling. That's not really Clem's thing. I don't think it's necessarily what Terran are doing all the time now. And Queen's going down here. I did have another point, and I don't remember what my other point was. But still, it's not Clem's thing. So I don't think he's going to go super, super turtle. But he has practiced it. He has had, again, like that month in the Open Cups where he practiced literally not just going for that 7-minute 4th base, but then also right after going to 5th, 6th, and 7th, and just no main army movement onto the map. He has practiced it. I just don't think he's going to do it. I think that was literally just to test it out. Especially when it was at a time when the Maru turtle style was kind of the, this is what you have to do. I do think it's different now. And we do have that move out, so I'm glad I'm right. It is a maxed out move out with 2-2. We have how many tanks? 5. It's not a truly devastating number, but that's also because he moved over into Widow Mines. Get 6 Widow Mines, even a couple of Hellbats still involved. And this base is under a lot of pressure. Elazer did take for the most part, took care of the drop to the right, and there you have it. Now totally taken care of. Can focus entirely on defending this base, but what a troublesome position without Vipers. Here comes one of the Vipers, and a second one coming in as well. Parasitic Bomb is the choice to begin, which I think is a good choice. Those Medivacs were bulked up for a while, trying to get those Marines on top of the army. The tanks are there to fall back to, and they are powerful when we fall back to them. So that's where the Vipers are going to have to try and actually almost shimmy their way over somewhere. Sneak-like, if they want to take them out of the equation. Right now, it is just a desperate hold. Elazer is low on cash, but consistently mining. 80 drones, not bothered because the drops were taken care of, and Elazer is probably playing some of his best ZVT, but is it enough against Clem's best TvZ? That's always the question. Pulling back once again to the tanks. Big Woodamine shot right there on top of the Lings. The tanks might be destroyed. Maybe. Okay, they are, but the reinforcements are coming through here for Clem. Lings coming in as well, looking for the friendly fire too. The Woodamines will pop off, but not nearly as effective as they were just 2 seconds ago. Still effective enough. The amount of bio being able to charge forward and the just slightly subpar reinforcements from Elazer seem to be enough for Clem, as he now finds Ultras without their chitinous plating. Very awkward for the Zerg. Maybe the Ultras will be enough, as this is mostly Marines. Liberator taken care of thanks to the remaining 3 Ravagers. The perfect amount to have, by the way. That is a godsend. But the Ultras are getting shot down thanks to their lack of chitinous plating. We'll be finishing in 7 seconds, but another Ultra gets taken down. And more reinforcements from Clem are coming in here. He is in his zone. He is on 8 racks. 4 bases, moving on to 5, and his momentum does not want to be stopped. Elazer desperately trying to get more Ultras onto the field, can barely afford it, but 5 more with chitinous plating should do the trick. And it looks like Clem has finally acknowledged that as well, taken a breather. He did manage to trade out a lot right there. He also took care of a lot of creep spread, but he is not going to win right here, right now. It's got to be a little more of a breather, too, as the ghosts come in. You got to actually get their snipes off, so they're not necessarily wanting to be running and gunning, but that is what they have to do as the Ultras and Lings descend upon them. The Medivacs finally on that 3rd Parasitic Bomb, mostly all going down, and Clem actually getting into a little bit of trouble at this point. Getting a little bit of the Gumiho problem. But this time around, this particular Terran, not super over-dedicating. I think he was right here, he was correct here, he was correct here, then he pulled back, and then he actually maybe was a little too much on the fighting front. Obviously, there's a certain amount of fighting he had to do to make sure he wasn't pushed back all the way to his actual base, but dangerously close to over-investing into that push. As soon as you over-invest as a Terran and your reinforcement line is also caught, that's when you're in a lot of trouble. Suddenly, the supply you had looks like nothing, because all the reinforcements get picked apart. Infestors are out, by the way, too. Elazer, like I said, playing probably some of his best CVT right now to go toe-to-toe with Clem, to hang on desperately at that moment. A lot of other Zerg players would have crumbled. Would have made the wrong decision, wouldn't have had the macro well enough, they wouldn't have the larva, they wouldn't have had the timing of the Ultras. Elazer has made it to the late game versus Clem. Now, Clem might have not been able to win right there, but just to be clear, he hasn't lost. He is on 5 bases, extra orbitals, and now he has the ghost. But the fungal on the backside, once again, huge for Elazer. Parasitic Bomb and the limited number of Medivacs once again, and that will be at least some forward position gain from Elazer. Unfortunately, every time you do retreat as the Zerg, the ghost snipes will come in. Thank you, Hurt One, for the 54 months. 3-3 is on the way for Elazer. It's been done for a while for Clem. As I was pointing out, 5 base setup for him. He could be going into the building upgrades as well, and he probably will. First emphasizing the Liberator range upgrade. He already got +1 for his tanks. He also got +1 armor for help with his Medivacs, as well as kind of the Liberators, I guess. And he's working on +2 armor there, too. But extra command centers going to be turning into planetaries. The more turtle defensive setup coming in as well. Love the fact that he got extra starports. Liberators are going to be a bigger and bigger nuisance as the game goes on. Elazer doesn't have a super strong response to that as far as, Corruptors, basically. But there's an argument to be made that Corruptors are still kind of lame against them because they're not particularly agile, and Ghosts love to snipe them. So really, I guess ideally, you just don't let the Liberators get into that critical mass and set up offensively so that you can still, outposition them, and corrosive bile them down, abduct them if you need to, so on and so forth. Actually, this left side base is under some immense pressure. Clem's army, not enough on the left side. So much of it was actually in the middle of the map, so that will be a successful break on the planetary. Elazer not going to overstay his welcome, at least not. He's going to try not to, but the army is incoming. Losing a couple more Ravagers. I believe the Viper got shot down there as well. And where are Elazer's units now is the question, as they were also on a lot of the right side. The reinforcements were. We got the medevac upgrade coming in, which actually is very helpful, especially if parasitic bombs decimate the medevac count once again. But boy, he has rebuilt them and then some. The Liberators actually being able to be produced when you have 10 medevacs back up and running is big. 6 drones go down. This hatchery looking awfully low, and the Elazer is dangerously close to losing out on the steam here. He doesn't have enough lings, I would say, or banelings primarily, actually. A ling surround on Marines and Ghosts underneath 10 medevacs. I mean, I don't know how many lings you can kill at that point, but it's got to be a lot. Finally, the Ultras come in as well, and that's going to change up the dynamic, but the Liberators come in as well. One already sieged up, helping, and Elazer does manage to get enough reinforcements to push this back. I mean, this is a comically small amount of Terran units that are currently threatening Elazer's base. They're not, like, it's 3 fighting units, really, because Liberators can't, you know, shoot buildings. A couple of units, also a comically small amount on the right side, just enough to kill this hatchery by the looks of things. They are actually distracted, but then the lings will die. No, the hatchery could have been saved, but it will not. It will go down. There is another hatchery that could be the 6th base, but it's in the other side. It's on the other side of the fight. So I don't know about that. These Liberators are just so freaking annoying. Elazer, I am actually really surprised with all this aggression that he has been able to keep his head above water. And he's actually totally fine as far as the supply goes. It's not even keeping his head above water. Now, I still think, actually, as far as the game goes, I would still say more so I'm scared for the Terran because Clem is just taking the map. So unless Elazer gets a better fight to change up the resource loss difference here, 10,000 resources, I do believe Clem will win. But Elazer has done even better than I expected. It's not that he's, you know, struggling to hold on thanks to fungals on a 160 supply. He is back up to maxed out himself. I don't know how long that will last. He loses that base at the bottom left. He's desperately trying to hold on to the one at the 12 o'clock. And he doesn't have a strong answer to the Liberator, I would say. The strongest answer to them, I mean, Corruptors would actually not be bad in this particular situation. There's so few ground units that this is actually where Corruptors would probably be great. But then again, trying to keep them just not on your side of the map is really the strongest thing you can do. And unfortunately, as Elazer tries to push forward on the left, he is going to give up a lot of resources to not even kill the planetary. No! And that is going to be it. Losing that army plus the army to the top right is finally going to net Clem that win. But damn. Elazer played a hell of a ZVT. And that is what I'm going to emphasize. We know how good Clem is and how good he is in this matchup and how good he is in that particular position, kind of getting the game he wants to play. It's Elazer that we would doubt. Press X for doubts, as many of you have in the bets, but he went toe-to-toe for the longest time. We move on to Equilibrium for the second map. In the top left, it is Team Liquid's Clem. Clem. On the top right, we do have Team Liquid's Elazer. That's not part of her clan. I saw his hotkeys. Well, I assume his location hotkey, but maybe not. But his camera went all the way down to the south. There it is. The camera's going every which way. Those must have been his camera hotkeys. Which his fourth was his gold, actually. I haven't taken a look at his setup, which you can do if you get the replays and it's a laser in it. If you go to the default observer UI, you can actually see their hotkeys. It might not be 100% correct because some people do bind things differently. But I'd say a lot of the times it is correct. If 5 is their barracks and 5 is actually their barracks. So the gold-based map does usually play a bigger part in the early and mid-game of the Protoss matchups. But Elazer might grab it as a fourth, as we saw, with his camera. I'm not sure exactly what Elazer could have done better in that last game, because God knows I would never have a chance against Clem. Strategically, I think he did a lot of the right moves as far as his composition, as far as his timing on things. He did try and keep some presence on Clem's side of the map. I guess it would go into a little bit stronger of the defenses from the get-go. You know, that one Widow Mine that killed like 20 Lings could have been avoided, or could have even splashed back Clem in a perfect world. That leads to a slightly better defense and so on. Perhaps he could have actually gotten into Corruptors, but that is an if. Like, not just because Corruptors might not have helped him, but also because Corruptors are expensive. Getting the 200 Spire and then, you know, like 8 Corruptors. I don't even know what it takes to one-shot a Liberator, but, you know, basically enough to one-shot a Liberator. That is super expensive. And no guarantee that they'll do their job, because, again, if they're used in a more entrenched warfare type of situation, where the Terran has all their stuff and you have all your stuff, the Ghost Snipes are just so brutal. Corruptors are not agile. But, hindsight 2020, if he could have afforded the 8 Corruptors or whatever, there were a couple of times where, one, Medivacs aplenty would have gone down. There was, you know, the triple parasitic bomb that eventually killed, like, the first 10 that Clem had, and that was amazing. But then he made another 10, and it was like, did it do anything? It's like killing creep tumors. Maybe Corruptors could have helped out against that. Maybe. But then, more importantly, they would have helped out against Medivacs and Liberators in some of those really small scenarios, the small unit scenarios, when the Medivacs were mostly the units that were all on the front line, and then it was like 3 Ghosts and 5 Marines. But like I said, it's not even guaranteed. That's not even guaranteed to be a good trade for him. It's certainly absolutely not guaranteed that he could have even afforded it while also surviving on the ground. I think it's 100% true. Elazer was at no point in time comfortable. It was a very action-packed TvZ, so it's hard to say that Clem would be comfortable, quote-unquote, but I do believe that Clem is more in his element with a game like that, where he has had the pressure on the Zerg player on their side of the map basically the entire time. Basically. There was that one moment where he might have gotten a little over-aggressive. When I talked about the Gumiho problem, Gumiho got way over-aggressive. And actually kind of, I don't know if throw is the right word, but he did miss out on opportunities, let's say, against Elazer in their best of 3 just an hour ago. Because he immediately pounced back onto the creep when he shouldn't have. He reinforced and rallied when he was losing a battle. And that almost happened to Clem. But most importantly, he did pull back, gathered his units, and was fine. Hellions are thinking about diving in, but that was a lot of Lings actually waiting for that. And Clem does make a bit of a mistake there. Elazer is the Zerg player who, more often than other Zergs, will have a surplus of Lings. You're facing Cyril, who's probably going to try and min-max, basically, on the defensive economic side. Maybe they don't have that. But Elazer, he would absolutely do it, especially because he got the gold base as the 3rd, not the 4th. So he does have a little surplus of minerals. Funnily enough, what happens is that you might have a surplus of minerals because you don't have to make as many drones, and the drones you do make already saturate so heavily. You don't have the larva when you go in that 3rd hatch. That is usually the comedic problem in ZVT and ZVZ, I guess, when that gold base sometimes comes down. ZVP, pretty much, yeah. All the Zerg, right? It's the number of hatcheries you have as well as the economy that you balance out with. So he did have a surplus, so that if only he could have had enough larvae to make all that money into Lings, he might have had a more permanent residence on Clem's natural. But Clem was still producing Hellions, which is quite important. And he did also get Banshees this game, so he would have had something to stop the total overwhelming in his natural. That is a couple of queens without an Overseer. That's problematic. One queen does get shot down. Now a couple of more queens pop up, but there's still no Overseer, as there's no lair. The lair is only 70% done, so this is awkward. Transfuse is having to be used, injects being missed, creep tumors also not going down, and the queens having to be replaced is just more money out of Elazer's pocket, which actually is not his problem. Once again, gotta emphasize that. It is the larva that is currently his problem. The Hellions, fortunately, are injured, so they do go down before doing too much damage to the drone line. They say that was messy would be an understatement. Because Elazer had so many queens, I guess they kind of just outlasted the situation, basically. And he has been building them, or at least trying to, and keeping the injects up as much as possible. It is the lack of the 4th hatchery that is hurting him. 700 minerals in the bank. Roaches will help out so much more with that. And he is going into 1-1, so I do want to clarify that in the previous games, he was playing against Gumiho, and the last map as well versus Clem, he went +1 melee. His intention was to move over into like that faster hive, into the faster like late game, I guess, mid to late game. This time around, it is +1 missile, but that was such a chaotic sequence of events that even though he didn't get any direct drone damage, or not a lot direct drone damage, I don't know if actually going for the 1-1 roach spell is going to work. He still is having trouble spending his money even with roaches, which are much more larva efficient, and we do see an infestation pit on the way. So either Elazer wanted to change his upgrade, but still wanted to do kind of the same thing, which is a faster hive, or he was going to 1-1 roach attack and is now realizing it's a little awkward. You can still do it, of course. Like, an infestation pit isn't thousands of minerals and gas. And we have seen that work out, actually. In fact, it has worked out against Clem. Clem had at least one game recently where it seemed like he had the information correctly. And so he was a little, you know, aggressive, and then he just got overwhelmed. Maybe that was Spirit, actually. Either way, it can happen. It can happen to the best of them. But Clem should be wary of the potential, like I've been talking about. The more that Elazer plays a roach game, the more that we could see the 1-1 roach attack. And Elazer is going to go for it. He is finally close to maxed out anyway. He is finding the tanks unsieged, but that is a lot of army for Clem. 1-1 is done. Combat shields, too. The tanks do get sieged up. One already was. The Banshee's helping out very importantly there, too. But the Marine numbers are starting to get a little low. But so are the Roach numbers. And the Ravagers are that soft underbelly that do not want to be on the front line. And that is going to cause Elazer to probably not win right here. He needs the Roach reinforcements, which are coming from such a long distance. Clem did lose 2 out of 3 of his tanks, and he is about to lose access to his 4th command center. Yes, we'll have to get the cancel right there. He's going to try and jump on top of the reinforcements before that huge critical mass comes back on the front lines once again. A good decision from the Terran, as that's exactly what he does. That was not at all a critical mass for Elazer, as he finally accepts retreat. The Banshee also just permanently in the air, never being stopped, is a huge annoyance, and Elazer is not going to find that attack that he was hoping for. The canceled 4th command center is something, but in general, we know how this goes. Clem is going to outscale the Roach Ravager as long as he's not overly aggressive. A little bit scary right there, but because there are no anti-air units, you know that an escape is always viable. So that actually would have been really dangerous if Clem had taken a fight like that right here so that Elazer could just continue pressuring his 3rd and his 4th. That would have been devastating, but that was on Elazer's side of the map. So Elazer, I think, acknowledging that even though he was able to push that back, get it fully loaded up and retreated, not going to be able to find anything more there. Clem scans the main base, sees that there are intentions to move on. Hive is on the way. We know the Bailey Nest and Melee is on the way as well. So Clem, with the Hive, Scout pretty much knows. This game's going to calm down a little bit. He's getting a sense tower, he's getting a bunker, a little wary of the run-by potential. Elazer is one of the Zerg players who commonly gets burrow, and often gets much faster burrow than the other Zergs too. Like, he's more of a burrow guy than any other Zerg, I think. Maybe, you know, Dark and Infestors, I guess. But, like, he actually gets burrow, so I would say so. And I do love that about him, but it just hasn't netted him huge victories in this series. Didn't net him any victories in the Gumiho series, really, either. That was primarily the Infestors. Roach is caught on the north side. You do expect the Zerg player to set up these run-bys because they want to get rid of Roaches. They'll make a certain amount of Ravagers, which is still kind of helpful, but the Roaches get outscaled, so they will start to replace them, and the best way to replace them is to trade with them. Clem was on top of that. Pushes that attack back and is also taking a fight on the front lines. He's got 2-2 versus Elazer's 1-1, and that's probably why he's feeling so confident. Just a little shy of truly enough units, but I would say overall that was a good trade. So a few Roaches left to cover those Ravagers. A little sketch for the Zerg player. This drop that caught the roaches to the north side continued on into the main, but has been taken care of as Elazer is starting to get a handle on his 5 bases. Now keep in mind that Adrenaline Rush from the gold is pretty much over at this point. So it is more like 4 bases and maybe even getting down to 3 as the mains mine out. Clem on his 4th base now, 5th base on the way. More sensor towers, more turrets, more SimCity. Also getting into his Ghost. 3-3 starts up for him, getting into that comfort zone for him. And Elazer has tried to adapt, trying to get his own upgrade, trying to get into his Ultras, making it look as close as possible to the last game. And it does look actually fairly close, but I think Clem has even more of a handle on this game. And Elazer did eventually lose out in the last one. Baneling speed not done, and the Widowmine popping off will take care of the Banelings. Roach Ravager, though, still enough to push the south back. North side, though, is now where Clem has brought his tanks forward. He doesn't have very many of them, as he has moved over into Widowmines, but still enough to anchor this and force Elazer to cancel. That would be like 6th, I guess, but that is like a triangle base. That's enough reinforcements, I would say. That's enough Zerg. Clem is going to have to back away. But it is that case, again, where Elazer just has such a hard time getting the appropriate number of bases, getting a really good engagement, and getting onto Clem's side of the map. That's going to be extremely difficult. He had his chance with his 1-1 Roach attack, because that's just the nature of the strategy, but to do so from here on out is going to be difficult. But he's alive. Again, that kind of, his head is above water. It's not that he's drowning necessarily, but you are worried about his stamina. You're like, you're fine for now, but if I check back in 10 minutes, you might be dead. See you later. That's where Elazer is at. And Clem is going to take his own gold base now once he clears up this burrowed lane. He does know of Elazer's tendencies to go for burrow. So he's been pretty good about building a missile turret every time. Not going to be able to push into a Terran with this type of army. The ghost count already up to 9. Medivacs at a comfortable 13. And of course, moving over into those Liberators that were such a nuisance in the last game. I mean, if you don't have Liberators in the last game, there's so many battles that are just easy. They're actually literally won by Elazer too. The Liberators were a thorn in his side, to say the least. Elazer also not experimenting with any type of Overlord drops. We've been seeing a few more of those mass Overlord drops, like from Serral, for instance. Although Clem has actually been really good about being mindful of that. We also don't see anything but Nidus Worms. But that is also, again, a lot because of the way that these games, plural, have gone, is not one where the Zerg is necessarily comfortable. We're actually kind of getting to that point, though, honestly. Elazer's getting all the bases up. His Mineral Bank is looking good. Not great for a Zerg Remax. His gas, still a little shy. But he is getting to a point in which that kind of more experimentation, the more, okay, I need to think things through for 5 seconds and see how I'm going to win this game, can maybe come into effect, as opposed to just, you know, autopiloting into, God, I need to survive, I need to survive, I need to survive. We do have a Spire, for instance, so definitely going to try and work out with the Spire, and we might see all the dynamics I was talking about, where sometimes the corruptors will look great. They'll be like, why didn't you get them in the first place? This looks fantastic. But then other times you'll see how they don't work out, and they're just going to get sniped, and it's going to be a huge loss of minerals and gas for them. I'm sure we'll see both of that. Love the burrowed banelings. We did have literally 1 burrowed baneling last game that I saw, and it never did anything. I don't know if there's any more, but now we have the critical double duo, which will kill the Marines, not the Marauders or Ghosts. Parasitic Bomb is microed against. And the Ultra's leading the charge. So we take some Liberator shots. We got an Infestor trying to stay out of that scan range. Did just reveal itself right there. Now the scan comes through. A little split there from Clem, knowing he was going to get fungled. Mitigating the damage. The Ghosts, most importantly, not getting fungled, do get all of those escape snipes. And Elazer now needs to kind of skedaddle. Only 1 Ultra helping out here is not going to be enough. I'm sure Clem will also be quite attentive to scanning forward. If he ever gets momentum, if he ever gets a good fight and wants to chase after, he should be good about scanning forward. 1, because burrowed banelings are an Elazer thing, but then 2, you do want to know how much the Zerg is remaxing, how fast they are remaxing, something that can be missing from a Terran when they A, don't have scans, and B, are a little, you know, trigger happy. They're like, oh, I'm winning, I'm winning, I'm winning. I think Clem might have scanned the Spire, because he's building Vikings. No, he didn't. Well, the freak is he building Vikings, then? I'm not sure, but the Vikings... Don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention. Infestor was placed here apparently a long time ago. This is like some War of the World shit, you know? Like, suddenly in the year 2005, Lightning will strike on that Infestor and bring it to the front lines. That is a plan far in advance made. I like it. I love it. Caduceus Reactor, which was gotten last game, again, is helpful. That it is absolutely still the end game upgrade. Gives the energy regen rate doubles it or something for the medevacs, basically ensuring they have enough energy at all the scans, or the stims rather, that you're doing. We see a lot of scans coming down, which is why I misspoke, as the creep needs to be cleared up, and again, need to be so wary of burrowed banelings and, of course, burrowed infestors. The Vikings, by the way, I think are great if we do have mass overlord drops, which is not actually the case, but that would be great. But then I actually think might be because he wants to snipe the Vipers and potentially even the Overseers. Basically, I think these Vipers are like the annoying addition that you don't expect! Oh my god! I didn't expect Clem to run his entire ghost army into the awaiting arms of Elazer's Banelings. My hand was off my mouse. Oh, well, Clem made a whoops-a-daisy right there, but that whoops-a-daisy won't end the game for him. It will cost him a planetary and all of those ghosts. Oh my god, he lost 13. Not right then and there, but he probably lost like 8 right then and there. Ay, ay, ay. Elazer going to be very thankful for that. Clearly, Clem did not expect the Zerg army to be that far forward, or actually misclick. That is also possible. But I was trying to talk about the Vikings being the nuisance, and woof, that surprised me. But yeah, they could kill the Overseers and allow the Ghost to cloak. They could kill the Vipers, so the last shot as they try to retreat. And they can kill Overlords, I guess, if you want to go, like... Speaking of Gumio, actually. I've been referencing him a lot, but Gumio had a game where he literally won because Vikings couldn't be stopped from killing all the Overlords. Another crash in here from Elazer, hoping to take advantage of the earlier win. Maybe thinking that Clem won't have enough to defend. Clem, in fact, does. Clem certainly had enough consistent mining, as well as his own bank, to recover from that oopsie-poopsie with the ghosts. It still is a bad thing for him, just to be super clear, guys. That is a huge reinforcement line to do. That is so expensive. That is so many minerals and gas. And it is the gap of which you are not actively moving forward in this game. So using your 12 ghosts to move forward to get this base, for instance. 12 drones go down to some Liberator harassment as the Lib range is done. That is a very useful tool there for Clem, but he is struggling to get some good fights on the defensive. This time around, almost completely broken. Well, if it weren't for the freaking Liberators. You know, if Corruptors do make a play too, the Vikings will ensure that Elazer has to make even more Corruptors to actually make them effective. So if the Corruptor is literally only have to worry about the Ghost, then maybe the ground army push back the Ghost, maybe a Fungal pushes back the Ghost from having to snipe, and then you just have free reign over the Liberators, right? Well, and Widow Mines, I guess. But if the Vikings are also there, then, you know, it's more damage on the Corruptors as they enter into killing the Liberators, and more damage on them as they try to escape. Because the Vikings' best benefit is, well, they're actually quite microable first, but then also, too, they have range. So this is a real war, guys. Elazer, I would say, has actually even gotten into a good place. Widow Mines just popped off. Caster Curse. Excuse me. Okay, Elazer's supply just like plummeted. But he has such a big bank, which is what I was going to try and talk about. Elazer got into a good place. You know, I said a couple minutes ago that I'd check back in on him to see if he drowned in the pool, if the stamina was lacking. No, I came back and I was like, oh, pleasantly surprised. He's still alive. He's still kicking. He's a good one. And in fact, he's actually doing laps around the pool. He's actually still feeling pretty good about himself. Thank you, Hello Zergling, for the 75 months. So, I mean, I'm really impressed with Elazer. Like, I really got to emphasize this. I think a lot of us, I know a lot of us. I saw you guys in chat. We just predicted Elazer to fall here against Clem. And instead, Elazer... again, winning is a strong word. I don't think he's winning this game, but he is looking so freaking good. It just is so difficult to kill a Terran. I mean... No! Oh, Jesus, that was a good one of mine hit. Serral seems to be the one who can do it reliably. And now, what Serral does really, really well, and kind of the ticket for a lot of Zerg play that I've noticed anyway... I'm gonna quickly tell Zergs how to play here. Don't worry about it. But is literally, like, the thing that usually works is a lot of Ling, Baneling, Fungal action. Maybe Hydras as well, actually, but we never had Hydras in this game. And it goes for its quickness. It goes for the attack to the left, it goes for the attack to the right, it goes for the attack through the middle. Nidus Worms, Overlords pop up, whatever it is, mobility, right? And also the ability to overwhelm, to really catch a Terran player not paying attention at 1 second, get the full surround, right? And then, if it is successful in that, like Elazer's little combat right here, that was mostly Clem's fault, he just was not paying attention, then that's when you remax on the Ultras. That has been Serral's killer move, is like a quick remax after a successful pounce on the Terran player. That is what killed Clem in his match versus Serral in the regionals. The Hydras also would have helped to kind of cull the growing Liberator count, which, by the way, good God, is at 15. Jesus! Would have had to cull it. Wouldn't have just... I don't know if it would have stopped this. But I guess now the play would just be, again, to avoid the Liberators, and if you do find them, just run on through them, which has happened here. Elazer finding a weak spot in Clem's defense because, well, that's what wasn't where Clem was really defending. Even then, that is a big trade. That is Elazer's supply plummeting. And thankfully his remax is available because he has the resources, but that's not a guarantee. That doesn't happen forever. Thank you, Wardy, for that raid. Especially as we do get into 23 minutes, Equilibrium might mine out. There's an 18,000 resource difference. Elazer cannot keep that up. Absolutely not. And I don't know what you do against this Mass Liberator, except the one of Broodlords. And you know what? I actually... Again, I'm going to teach Zerg players how to play here. Y'all should listen to me. But this is actually when Broodlords make sense. Not just because the Liberators, which... I think you just need a ground... I think you need to move away from grounds, basically, to handle. Like, this is comical. This is so shitty for the Zerg. There we go. Corruptors are on the way. But because we are also getting into a smaller map, basically, it's no longer about my 12 o'clock base versus your 6 o'clock base, and then trying to maneuver around all the avenues on the map. It's more about my 12 o'clock versus your 12 o'clock. And that's when Broodlords don't have to worry about their biggest weakness, which is their mobility. And so the perfect Zerg army is theoretically Mass, Broodlord, Corruptor, Infestor, Viper. And the Liberators would have less say in that. You still want some Liberators because they are helpful with their range and they take care of like Infestors, for instance, but you know, having 15 Liberators might not be good against that composition. But that's not what Elazer's going for. Elazer built the Corruptors to try and actually just steamroll through everything, but the Vikings being microed is a huge problem. The Liberators are in such high numbers that actually clumped up here, the Corruptors will go down. Liberator anti-air still actually exists, just not as effective as it used to be. And Elazer does not have the secret to breaking Clem in the late game. GG. And just to be super clear, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying doing what I'm saying here or what Serral has shown is like easy peasy lemon squeezy. Why don't you just go ahead and do it? Play better, you fool. It's absolutely not. 100% not. To even get to the point in which you are alive at 24 minutes versus Clem is already astounding. But I think that is the only thing you can do, is look at what Serral is doing, because so many other Zerg players are also struggling in this exact same department. Alright. Could be the last game here of the series, as in the bottom left we have Clem up 2-0. Top right it is Elazer, who is playing his best EVT, I think. I really do. It's not often you see Elazer play out such a long, extended macro game and be toe-to-toe with, you know, one of the best TvZers in the world. Mid-game shenanigans absolutely happen. Him setting the pace with like a 1-1 Roachall in that basically works, basically wins, and then playing it out after, that happens. Capitalizing on the Terran's very gigantic mistake, that happens. But as far as kind of a real stand and fight, both of you just stand still and just, you know, hit each other in the face. Usually Elazer would fall, I think, before that, or would be certainly struggling more leading up to 25 minutes, as opposed to having even maybe a point in time in which he might have been favorable. I guess, you know, what I'm saying is there was a point in that last game in which Elazer arguably had all the tools Zerg would want. This is before the Liberator count grew too high. This was as his bank was starting to really get quite good. It was just before he took a bad fight to the north, I think. I don't remember what time it was. But there was this one moment where I was saying Elazer might actually even be in a good place. And then it disappeared, to be fair. But like, he's getting there. And it's not that Clem is playing bad or making huge mistakes that are game-ending and Elazer's capitalizing, although that one ghost mistake was certainly big. He's playing almost as, you know, perfectly as we imagine Clem to do. And Elazer is still not almost winning necessarily, but still taking him to 25 minutes. That's impressive. But to figure out how to defeat the extremely good late-game Terran player, who has purposefully practiced that too. There was a time where Clem wasn't very good at Turtle Terran. When people were complaining that it was super, super strong and no one could beat it because Maru was abusing the hell out of it and ghosts, Clem actually wasn't that impressive with it. Seemed very uncomfortable with it. But then he started to practice it and he looks fine. And metas have changed and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he's practiced it and he's now good at it. It's an execution and a theory thing. You can think back to the Reaper died. You can think back to what Cyril did in the same scenario you can try to in the heat of the moment, but then to actually get into the position that Cyril does in the first place and then do what Cyril does second, it's quite difficult. Elazer got a couple of lings on the side of the map, with the Reaper actually dying, which is something. Clem doesn't usually lose it. Those lings did take a momentary win, denying the mining of the natural for 10 seconds. Getting a really good scout, too. Often they would not be allowed up onto the high ground at this particular moment. So fact is, they saw the 3rd CC building, which, like, oh, big surprise. But they also saw the starport, so just that little bit is nice because, for instance, in the first game, I think there was a 2-1-1. So seeing the timing of the starport is good. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go into Banshees, but it is, first of all. Although maybe not cloaked. He was taking care of the link, so it is going to be cloaked. But I think that it's expected now from Elazer, because Elazer has been showing roaches. And Banshees, at the end of the day, while they're not like strictly necessary against roaches, they're really helpful. It's a nice feeling. I gotta imagine the same feeling of like, well, at least I got Banshees. Of the pleb ladder is also held by the really good Terran. So they're like, well, at least I got Banshees. If you do roach all in me, at least I got those. And Clem opts for this build so often, it's not like it's a surprise. So Elazer, who might have been a little, you know, like he was like reminded maybe last game, like, I need to worry about that. And he had that weird queen conundrum where he kind of did okay, but certainly missing an overseer for so long really hurt him. We'll probably not have that problem here because he scouted it. He should be expecting it. He gets to surround the Hellions, by the way. And he is getting a faster lair as the second Banshee is about to pop and about to head on over. The lair would be done and the Overseer would be building. Elazer also not going into roaches this game, so he is not just, I think, improving on the early game of the last, which also was a little more awkward because he had a gold too, but he is also changing his own style. And this is the style in which he can sometimes find those moments to strike, the perfect moment to strike, the moment where Clem says, oh, I can just be kind of cool on my medevac drops, and then Elazer has built 50 more lings than you expect and gets this huge run by. Fortunately, those queens moved at the exact wrong time. 2 Banshees gonna find 5 drones, maybe 6. Nope, didn't get that shot off. They find 5 drones because of the... Well, I mean, the Spore probably wasn't gonna cover the gases anyway, but also the queens did move out of position. And now just some fancy micro and the man gonna grab them 3 more, and then they have a lot of space to tuck themselves in on Hecate. They do have an escape path, no problem. Elazer does have 3 base saturation, 4th halfway done, so the Banshee should not be able to get a cancel on that. That is a fear sometimes, even in the pro tournaments. Clem's 3rd CC is down, Sim is finishing, 1-1 on the way. A little bit later than Elazer's, but not by too much. And Elazer, by dealing with those Hellions, I would say, has been able to, well, I want to say mostly safeguard his drones, but losing 9 to Banshees is a sting for the professionals, for sure. He has been able to get his creep tumors out. Creep on the right side, looking quite good, actually. Hydralistan will be on the way. I mean, this is the way that Cyril plays. And as I was saying in the last game, if he had gone Ling Bane Ling Hydra, there would have been a culling of the Liberators earlier on, and Medivacs, you know, air. Not that that necessarily would have won him the game. Seemed like Clem was pretty determined to get to 15 Liberators, but he would have culled him. Widowmine's gonna pop off on the Queens, but that's preferable to popping off on the Banelings, which now are coming in here. That is just straight up enough Zerg army to deal with the double Medivacs. Clem going into the 7-minute 4th CC again. He just loves this style of play. The 2 Banshees further trying to find damage. We'll find probably 1 or 2 more drones before they die. Oh, the weak one got in the front lines. Yep, they find 4. That's cool. Yeah, usually the Terrans do want to keep at least 1 Banshee alive for spotting purposes. A little help on the run-bys as well. I would think Clem wants to do that too. And he is starting to shift queue that around. 5th base now done for Elazer as well, but he's still having trouble spending his cash. Pure Ling Baneling thus far. Hydra's not yet made. He's going to have a lot of Zergs to struggle. But if you do get up your 5 bases about as swiftly as you want, that is supposed to be enough, I guess. Macro hatchery, certainly never hurt anyone. And now some Hydras are finally on the way, so spending that bank, having enough. Whoa! But that Widowmine just popped off. Thought he had enough on the right side. Gonna definitely need more Banelings, and that is what he's doing. More Banelings have formed, and that should be enough, preventing any type of Widowmine extreme hits. There we go. That was good enough anyway. Elazer will defend the 5th base and still has Banelings. Also now getting into those Hydras. I don't believe Clem knew about this. Now, he knew it was Ling Baneling. He's seen no roaches, right? So he knew that. And, you know, with the last month or 2, I suppose, having more Hydras, he might have also expected the Hydras, but only now figuring that out for sure. Range is done on those Hydras. Not speed, though, and no missile upgrades for them quite yet. Clem's 4th base is down, by the way, as he is just all on Elazer's side of the map, killing Queens, killing Overlords, and killing so many Lings. Banelings are necessary over here, and Elazer just simply doesn't have any. He's got 5, 2, 1, 0 on the right side. They all got sniped down, and that is it. Clem finishing the series with a bang. He will 3-0 and get his spots in IEM Katowice. Elazer, though, he will have a second chance to qualify. Clem is joined by the likes of Showtime, who defeated Elazer, Kira Marine, who defeated Spirits, and Rainer, who defeated Classic. And I believe Elazer now goes on to face Skillus in the lower bracket. Elazer Bunny underway, Classic Gumio underway, Spirits Lambo underway, so we might just follow Elazer to his ZVP.